With every battle and attack, immeasurable amounts of toxic pollutants are dispersed into Ukraine's soil, water, and air, making Ukraine's environment the latest victim in Russia's war.
It's important to keep in mind that there's already a lot of toxic chemicals in industrial society, independent of military activities. There are about 24,000 environmentally hazardous enterprises or facilities across the country. Most of the heavy industry in Ukraine is located in the east, where the fighting is most heavily concentrated. So whether things are targeted or whether they're collateral damage in the conflict, there's this enormous liberation of toxic materials into the environment. In the short run, that creates serious health risks through water quality challenges, air quality hazards, and great risk to first responders as well in humanitarian efforts.
Ukraine's nuclear infrastructure adds another environmental vulnerability, as radioactive materials can cause genetic disorders such as cancer in plants, animals, and humans.
The big concern when it comes to nuclear is some sort of a direct strike that would damage one of Ukraine's 15 nuclear reactors, which are concentrated at 4 sites around the country. The Chernobyl site creates special risks. That site still needs active management by Ukrainian nuclear scientists. It still requires careful monitoring. There are still 20,000 spent fuel rods that are stored in the cooling ponds on site. And so while the idea of a direct strike on nuclear facilities gets all of the attention and raises the fears, and rightly so, we also have to pay attention to this more subtle effect of the constant threat that the war somehow disrupts these vital monitoring and management activities.
As history shows, these environmental impacts can have long-term effects, often lasting generations.
Probably the best example, and probably the best studied and most carefully studied case that we have, is the Vietnam War. The widespread deforestation through the use of defoliants, napalm, toxification through the use of Agent Orange, the toxic hotspots that were created by the widespread bombardment of the country. Vietnam shows us the legacy. We're 50 years out from that war, and the legacy is still very, very active for the people of Southeast Asia.
Russia's invasion of Ukraine also sends international ripples, as allied countries are reprioritizing climate-conscious initiatives to address the growing war.
Just look at the way that the Ukraine war has drawn attention away from the very, very serious climate challenge that we face, and look at the vast amount of resources and the priorities of government and the attention of political leaders that's being drawn off necessarily by this conflict. And so there's a tremendous disruptive factor there, particularly around climate change, but also around a wider set of global environmental governance challenges that really do need the attention of governments, the resources of governments, and are not receiving them.
Peace is the first and foremost answer to resolving any environmental crisis in Ukraine. But what about afterwards? What does the road to recovery look like?
Good environmental governance is absolutely critical to the recovery period, partly because it can manage tensions and conflicts over natural resources that exist in society that might bring you right back to the brink of conflict, partly because it can be used as a vehicle of trust and reconciliation. And so one of the urgent considerations, I think, for the international community is to make sure that engaging these issues the right way, heading down the path of sustainability in the earliest days of recovery, it creates critical opportunities for peace, for reconciliation that shouldn't be over.